You're driving home from work after a long day. Red and blue lights flash behind you. Your heart rate picks up. You pull over carefully. The officer walks up to your window and says, "License and registration." You hand them over without thinking twice. But in the next 60 seconds, one wrong word could turn a simple traffic stop into a search, an arrest, or something much worse. Every single day across America, drivers make one critical mistake during traffic stops. They think handing over their ID means they have to answer every single question that follows. They don't understand that once you've given your required documents, a completely separate second investigation often begins, and that's exactly where people lose their constitutional rights without even realizing it. I've spent years analyzing traffic stop law and studying hundreds of bodycam videos from actual traffic stops. I've reviewed dozens of court rulings showing how officers routinely use your ID as the starting point for fishing expeditions. And I've seen how one phrase can stop that investigation cold. This is educational content only. For specific legal guidance, consult a licensed attorney in your jurisdiction. Today, I'll show you 5 exact responses you need to know for when cops demand your ID during any traffic stop. You'll learn what you must provide, what comes next, and the words that protect you from turning a ticket into a criminal investigation. Point 1. What you must give during a traffic stop. Let's start with the legal reality. If you're operating a motor vehicle and an officer pulls you over, you must provide 3 things: your driver's license, your vehicle registration, and proof of insurance. This isn't optional. This isn't negotiable. Every state in the country requires this. Refusing to provide these documents can get you arrested. Picture this: you're pulled over for a broken taillight. The officer walks up and says, "License, registration, and insurance, please." You must comply. You're driving on public roads, and the law requires you to have these documents and show them on demand. But here's where people make the first mistake. They think because they have to show their license, they also have to answer questions. Wrong. Providing your required documents and answering investigative questions are 2 completely different things. You hand over your license, registration, and insurance. The officer takes them back to his patrol car. He runs your information. He's checking for warrants, suspended licenses, outstanding tickets. This is normal. This is legal. You wait. Then the officer comes back. He hands you your documents, maybe with a warning or a ticket. At this point, most people think the stop is over, but watch what happens next. The officer leans down and says, "So, where are you headed tonight?" That question has nothing to do with the broken tail light. That's the start of a fishing expedition. Officers are trained to extend traffic stops by asking casual questions. They know most people will answer because they think they have to keep cooperating. But here's the legal truth. Once the officer has completed the purpose of the stop, writing your ticket or giving you a warning, you are free to leave. Any questions beyond that point are voluntary. The Supreme Court case Rodriguez v. United States makes this crystal clear. Officers cannot prolong a traffic stop beyond the time needed to handle the original violation. If they gave you your documents back, the stop is over. Questions about where you're going or what you're doing are not part of that original stop. So, when the officer asks that first follow-up question, here's what you say. "Officer, am I free to leave?" Say it calmly, say it respectfully, but say it clearly. That one question forces the officer to tell you the legal status of the encounter. If the stop is over, they must say yes. If they're detaining you for something else, they must have reasonable suspicion of a separate crime. If they say yes, you're free to leave. Then you say, "Thank you, officer," and you drive away. Don't keep talking. Don't explain where you're going. Just leave. If they say no, you're not free to leave. Then you ask the next critical question. For what reason am I being detained? That forces them to articulate reasonable suspicion. They have to give you a specific lawful reason, not a hunch, not a feeling, a specific articulable fact that suggests criminal activity. If they can't give you that, the continued detention is illegal. Wrong way. Officer hands back your documents. Where you headed, you answer. "Just going home from my friend's place." Officer: "Oh yeah. What were you doing there?" You answer, "Just hanging out." Officer, you guys have anything to drink? Now you're being investigated for DUI. And it all started because you answered a simple question, right way. Officer hands back your documents. Where you headed? You respond, Officer, am I free to leave? Officer, I'm just asking a simple question. You repeat, am I free to leave? If yes, you leave. If no, you ask, for what reason am I being detained? You must provide your license, registration, and insurance during a traffic stop. But once those documents are returned, you don't have to answer fishing questions. Ask if you're free to leave. Point 2. The 5 questions cops ask after getting your ID. After you hand over your ID, the officer runs it and comes back with questions designed to give him probable cause. Here are the 5 most common traps. Where are you coming from? Answer a bar and you're investigated for DUI. Answer a friend's house and he wonders why you're here. Any answer opens more questions. Where are you headed? Same trap. A party suggests alcohol. Home leads to which home and why you're out late. Do you know why I pulled you over? This makes you confess. Say, I think I was speeding. And you just admitted a violation he might not have even clocked. Have you had anything to drink? Say yes, even 1 beer. And you're investigated for DUI. Say no. And if he smells anything, you look like a liar. Do you mind if I search your vehicle? This is the payoff after making you comfortable. He's asking because he doesn't have probable cause. You don't have to answer any of these. When asked, say, Officer, I'm invoking my 5th Amendment right to remain silent. I won't be answering questions. Officer, where are you coming from? You. I'm invoking my right to remain silent. Officer, you hiding something? You. I don't answer questions without my attorney present. Officer, that makes you look suspicious. You. I understand, officer. Am I free to leave? Don't fall for guilt tactics. Officers use you hiding something to pressure you. Stay firm. Each answer you give builds their case. Answer one question then another, and soon you're trapped explaining inconsistencies. If recording, announce for everyone's safety, I'm recording this interaction. That documents your refusal. The 5 questions after ID are evidence gathering. Don't answer. Invoke your 5th Amendment right and ask if you're free to leave. Point 3. Request versus order. The critical distinction. The officer has your license. He's running your information. Then he returns and says, step out of the vehicle for a second. Most people immediately open their door. But that action just gave the officer way more control, and you didn't have to do it. There's a massive legal difference between a request and an order. Requests are voluntary, orders are mandatory. But officers blur this line using soft language that sounds like a command, but is actually a request. Can you step out? That's a request. Step out of the vehicle. That's an order. The difference is subtle but legally huge. If you comply with a request, courts see it as voluntary. If you comply with an order, you had no choice. When the officer makes any request, ask, Officer, are you ordering me to step out or are you asking me? This forces clarity. If he's asking, you can decline. I'd prefer to stay in my vehicle, officer. If he's ordering you, you comply, but first you protect yourself. Before stepping out, say, for the record, what is the lawful reason for ordering me out of the vehicle? This makes the officer state his justification on camera. Officer safety is valid under Pennsylvania versus Mims, but I just want to talk is not. It creates a record that you're not stepping out voluntarily. As you step out, add, I am complying under protest and I do not consent to any searches. This makes clear you're only doing this because you were ordered to. You're not waiving rights. On body cam, this protects you immensely. Wrong way. Officer says step out. You immediately get out. Officer says, mind if I pat you down? You say, okay. He finds a prescription bottle with someone else's name. Now you're arrested. It all looked voluntary. Right way. Officer says, step out. You ask, are you ordering or asking? Officer, I'm ordering you. You ask, for the record, what is the lawful reason? Officer safety. You respond, I am complying under protest. I do not consent to searches. You step out slowly, hands visible. Always clarify whether something is a request or an order. If it's a request, you can decline. If it's an order, comply while documenting you're not doing this voluntarily. Point 4. Physical safety when handing over your ID. How you physically hand over your ID determines whether the stop stays calm or becomes high stress. One sudden movement, and the officer's hand moves toward his gun. You're pulled over. The officer asks for your license. Your wallet is in your back pocket. If you reach back without announcing it, the officer assumes you're reaching for a weapon. Officers are trained to watch hands. If they can't see what you're doing, they assume the worst. Your quick reach for your wallet looks like a weapon draw. Before reaching for anything, put your hands on the steering wheel. When asked for your license, say, "Officer, my wallet is in my back right pocket. I'm going to reach for it now with my right hand." Say it clearly, then move slowly. Pull out your wallet and hold it up visibly. Don't fumble in your lap. Keep it visible. If your registration is in the glove box, "Officer, my registration is in the glove compartment. I'm going to open it now." If you have a firearm in there, "Officer, I have a firearm in the glove compartment. My registration is also in there. How would you like me to proceed?" That announcement could save your life. If you open a glove box with a gun without warning, the officer might draw on you, but if you tell him first, he can give instructions. Narrate every movement. "I'm reaching for my insurance card. I'm placing my hands back on the wheel." This keeps the officer calm and creates a perfect bodycam record. Don't reach for your license before asked. Don't lean suddenly toward the passenger seat. Don't dig in your console without announcing. Don't reach under your seat. These movements without announcement look suspicious. Traffic stops are dangerous for officers. They don't know who's inside or if there are weapons. Clear communication and slow movements reduce stress. Wrong way. Officer asks for license. You immediately reach back without speaking. Your hand disappears. Officer's tone changes. "Show me your hands." The stop becomes tense. Right way. Officer asks for license. Hands on wheel. "My wallet is in my back pocket. I'm reaching for it with my right hand." You move slowly. The officer stays calm. Always announce movements before reaching for ID. Keep hands visible. Move slowly and deliberately. Point 5. The warrant bluff. During traffic stops. When you refuse to answer questions or consent to a search, officers often say, "If you don't cooperate, I'll just go get a warrant." It sounds intimidating. For most drivers, it's pure bluff. A warrant requires a judge's signature and probable cause that a specific crime was committed. You don't get one just because a driver refused to answer questions. Here's the pattern. You provided your documents. The officer asked where you're coming from. You invoked your Fifth Amendment right. He asked to search. You said, "I do not consent." Now he's frustrated. "Fine, I'll go get a warrant." You're making this harder than it needs to be. Most people panic and give in. Okay, you can search, but if the officer had enough for a warrant, he wouldn't ask for consent. He'd just search under the automobile exception. The automobile exception says if an officer has probable cause, he can search without a warrant. So when an officer asks for consent, he doesn't have probable cause. He's fishing. When threatened with a warrant, say, "Officer, if you believe you have legal grounds for a warrant, you're welcome to pursue that, but I do not consent to any searches. Am I free to leave?" This isn't confrontational. You're maintaining your position and putting the burden back on the officer. If he has probable cause, he'll use it. If not, he'll let you go. "Officer, if you don't let me search, I'll get a warrant. If you believe you have legal grounds, pursue that, but I do not consent to any searches." "Officer, you're being difficult. This could all be over." I understand, officer, but I'm exercising my Fourth Amendment rights. Am I free to leave?" "Officer, fine, you can go." That's how it usually ends. The officer realizes you know your rights and aren't intimidated. He doesn't actually have enough for a warrant, so he lets you go. But if he says, "Wait here while I apply for a warrant," he's prolonging the stop beyond its original purpose. Rodriguez viz. United States says he can't do that without reasonable suspicion of a separate crime. You've documented a potential violation. While waiting, remain silent. Don't answer more questions. Keep recording if possible. Document how long you're held. All of this becomes evidence if you need to challenge the stop later. The warrant threat is designed to scare you into giving consent, because consent makes everything legal. If you consent, the officer can tear your car apart. You can't later argue it was illegal because you allowed it. But if you refuse consent and the officer searches anyway, your attorney has a stronger case. Either he had probable cause, which he should articulate, or he didn't, meaning the search was illegal, and evidence gets thrown out. Don't fall for the warrant bluff. Officers can't get a warrant just because you exercised your rights. Call the bluff calmly, then ask if you're free to leave. Here's the core principle. During a traffic stop, you must provide your license, registration, and insurance documentation. But once you've done that, you control what happens next by knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. Remember these 4 phrases. First, am I free to leave? Use this after your documents are returned and the officer starts asking questions. Second, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. Use this for any questions beyond the traffic stop. Third, I do not consent to searches. Use this clearly whenever asked. Fourth, officer, are you ordering me or asking me? Use this to clarify requests versus commands. Print these out. Keep them in your car. Practice them until they feel natural. Because during a traffic stop, you won't have time to think. You need these phrases ready. Remember, this is educational content only, not legal advice. Always consult with a qualified attorney in your state for your specific situation. If this video helped you understand your rights during traffic stops, hit that like button. Subscribe for more breakdowns of traffic stop law. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video. And share this with everyone you know who drives. The smartest drivers aren't the ones who talk their way out of tickets. They're the ones who know exactly what to say to protect their rights while staying safe.